feel better now.
Okay, but you understand as a utilitarian that you have described, right? That you have the reason why you hold these moral philosophies is because you believe it's going to result in a outcome. What is that outcome?
Because if I say, it's really as simple as Hans put it. If I say good things good and bad things bad, like that's not fucking contradictory. If I say I value autonomy, then we should increase autonomy.
Vivian, that's
right?
not an answer. That's not an answer to that. What I'm saying is, what does that lead to? What does valuing autonomy mean? What is valuing democracy? What does that lead to? What does that society that values democracy look like? What does a society that doesn't value capital ownership look like? What does that look like to you? And then so that way, I can have an understanding of what you're describing, and I can poke holes in it if I believe there's holes to be poked in it. Because otherwise, you're just saying, I like good things and I don't like bad things, and you can't criticize what I want for a future society because I'm never going to make a moral prescription.
I mean, I've made several. The moral prescriptions I make are like critiques of the current system and the way in which it doesn't currently work, and how we should engage pragmatically with the world today in order to try and improve things. If you want me to tell you exactly what that's going to result in, that's not a thing that I can do.
Okay,
really.
so, and my whole point is, if you're just poking holes in the system in places where I don't think that there's proper holes to be poked in and there's no viable alternative, what is the point in me listening to you? If you're not going to give a moral prescription of what we ought to do, you just come in here and say, hey, capital investment, hold on.
No, I just said I give moral prescriptions on what we ought to do, but not in some far-flung ideal society, but in the fucking present day to immediately improve people's
but what I'm
conditions.
asking you is, what do those present day changes lead to? You're talking about, I'm just arguing for...
Make predictions as to what they will probably lead to, but like...
That's what my whole argument is. What do they lead to?
If we follow the immediate present day prescriptions that I have, it would probably eventually lead to a society in which we don't necessarily value money to the same degree, or money looks completely different, or we don't have money at all.
Okay, what does it look like? What does that look like? How would things work? How would anything work? Show me how that would operate. Like, give me something. Again, I'm not asking you for like the 1095 on a tax form. I'm not asking you for like the subclause of a subclause. I am just asking you how society would work without capital.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I'm asking for.
It would be a society in which the resources are communally owned, right? And because we have, through the actions we take pragmatically in the current day, fosters a spirit of cooperation rather than competition, right? We vote democratically on how to assign those resources so that they provide the most good for the community. That is what that would look like.
Okay, and my response is, if everybody democratically agrees that anarchism is shit, how are you saying that they're wrong? Because if your linchpin of your whole philosophy,
they're wrong. I'm saying they could vote for that, and they could move away from this.
You said earlier that you said that it would be bad, implying that their decision is incorrect.
Yeah, I said I think they would be making a bad decision, but people make bad decisions all the fucking time.
Yeah, implying that it would be a wrong decision, though. So what I'm stating to you is,
I don't want to impose anarchism on other people.
How do you know? How do you know what's wrong, Vivian? How do you know what's wrong? If your core fundamental is democracy and it's democratic, they democratically came to it. It sounds like that's your philosophy and practice. It's not how that works, because there's more to it.
Well-being, of which autonomy is a factor, a pretty large factor, but not an entire. Like, if you want to maximize well-being, right, and people autonomously make this decision that kind of hurts their own well-being to a degree, like, I don't want to infringe on their autonomy to make those shit decisions.
What I'm asking you is, if democracy is the line that you're giving me for your ideal society, and people decide democratically that your ideology is stupid, then beyond, like, you know, your anarchist community.
Well, then they're voting out democracy, right?
No. So you could categorize it that way. But I'm asking you, because you're making an appeal to that being wrong. What is right? Is what I'm asking you. If in your mind they vote democratically on X, Y, and Z issue, what is right? So let's start with money. They vote on money. What is the right answer to whether or not money should exist?
The right answer on whether or not money should exist.
Correct.
I'd say ultimately it shouldn't.
Okay. Why?
Because the accumulation of capital sets up those unjust hierarchies that I was talking about earlier, the ability to hoard resources for oneself.
What's stopping me from hoarding resources without money?
Excuse me. It's generally a lot harder, right? Like, you can hoard banknotes, but hoarding other things requires.
Wait, do you have banknotes in this presumed society, or you good?
Fucking hell! I think I got some COVID.
Uh-oh.
Nah, I just ate too many peanuts, and I think I inhaled a bit of one. Furiously chomping on peanuts. Sorry, can you say the last thing you said again?
Yeah, so can you give me a reason why, like, so you said the stuff about banknotes, I don't really see how that's any different than money, if we're being honest. Like,
no, I was saying that's, like, the banknotes are bad, right?
Oh, okay, sure.
So money is a way of
so
accumulating resources and capital.
Yeah, what's stopping people from
having to actually hoard the actual items? Like, it's a lot harder to hoard $1 million of apples than it is to hoard $1 million, right? That's the whole point of money.
But what if I just convince, because this is not the way that I see it. The way I see money is pretty similar to just convincing people. You are convincing people through a pretty coercive method because we need it to exist, right? You're convincing people to do what you want. So what if I just convince like 50 people to hoard apples for me?
Wait, sorry, what coercive method am I using to convince people of what I want?
No, I'm not saying that you are using a coercive method. What I'm saying is that money is typically pretty coercive when it comes to, like, shit, because we need it to survive. So, sure. Like, yeah, whatever. But, like, my thing is, or at least as it currently exists, I don't believe it has to be. I think we can get a good standard of living if we have a strong welfare state. But anyway, in your system, what's stopping me from just convincing 50 people to guard some apples for me, 1 million apples for me, and I have that now because I convinced those people to do it. In the same way that I can pay people to guard some apples for me.
Yeah, ultimately those things are kind of owned by the community, at least in part. And so one person or even 50 people taking them all into taking it into their possession to do whatever the fuck they want with it, like, that would be like, the people around them aren't really gonna fucking like that much.
So couldn't I make the same argument about apples with money? Just democratize apples, make it so that way the apples can't be purchased by and large by somebody who wants to purchase them, but instead put, like, maybe a limit order on the amount of, or ration out the food in a specific way so that way people can't hoard food. Couldn't I make that argument with money as well?
Yeah. Wait, with money as well?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, yeah, but at that point they're only kind of like, it's just vouchers, isn't it? It's just like one single-use labor vouchers or whatever.
Not even necessarily.
The point of money is that it kind of, like, sticks around and is equivalent to everything else.
Well, it can be, for sure. But as long as I'm providing the basic necessities to everybody who wants them, who cares? You buy 10 apples or 50?
I don't know, man. I'm fucking lost.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that your alternative that you're proposing, right? Your alternative, many of the things that you enjoy about your alternative can be enjoyed with money involved, just with proper differences, like changes to a system. If I was so bold as to make them. Can be enjoyed
with money involved. I mean, you can have an apple right now. I'm not saying that this is going to make apples exist. I'm saying that the existence of, like, the ability to accrue large amounts of capital creates other problems that I would want to do away with. But
there is no way to avoid that when it comes to a system without money either. Because all I have to do is convince a bunch of people that I'm a based as fuck guy and that all of their communities should give me all their iPhones or their apples. All I got to do.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, so what if I'm a political advocate, somebody who's incredibly charismatic and incredibly like well-spoken or whatever, and I convince a bunch of people that they should side with me and give me all their apples?
right?
How does that solve the problem of accumulation?
I mean, I guess it doesn't.
Right. So shouldn't we look at separate methods to be able to solve accumulation?
Sure, that's why all this shit is like entirely holistic.
Right. So this is the point of having discussions about very specific ideas instead of unjust hierarchies are bad. Because I truly believe there's not a single human being that has ever existed in the history of mankind that disagrees with it.
Well, no, the conversation is like what makes a hierarchy unjust.
Right.
I think there's
That's
people who would...
and that's the conversation that should be had, not statements when I ask you, what does your society look like? And you state to me, unjust hierarchy's gone. Well, everybody agrees with that. Show me what that looks like. Tell me what that means. That's what I'm looking for.
So what is it? I mean, if you're asking me what is an unjust hierarchy, my answer is no person ought to be able to tell another person what to do without at least some form of deciding group consent that this person can give those orders, the agreement of the group that job needs to be done. They shouldn't be able to tell people what to do if it's not relevant to the job being done, i.e. you can tell me where to put the bricks if we're building a house, but you can't tell me what I can have for dinner when I get home, right? Because it's fucking irrelevant.
Wait. I thought you said that we could with the Apple vouchers. If I had apples yesterday, I can't have apples today.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm like super fucking lost in the Apple conversation. That's what I said. I'm just fucking... I have no idea where the fuck...
Okay, if there is a limited number of apples in the community, how am I not telling you what you can eat and what you can choose to do with your, like, the production of your labor or whatever, right? Like, how do I, as a person, ration an apple in your society?
How do you as a person rationalize?
Yeah, I live in your society. How do I get an apple?
I can't get... This is what I mean. Like, people will push these...
Dude, you can't answer how I get food in your society. I can't. I'm sorry.
Because I don't have a
me.
society.
You broke
me.
Shit. You broke
because
me.
I don't have an ideal society. Ahrelevant. That's what I've said repeatedly. You're like, your ideal society, blah, blah, blah. I don't have an ideal society.
I'm sorry. That shit shook me. I need to reset. Give me a minute. I need to fucking reset. That question wasn't answered. Jesus. Okay. So, in a society that you could see coming as a result of your philosophy, one that you believe comes with the best outcomes, the ones that you think is the most poggers, how do I requisition an apple?
I assume you would go to the people who have the apples, say, I would like an apple, please, and they give you a fucking apple.
What if I ask for 500?
Do you need 500? What do you need 500
Hold on.
for?
Are we judging it based on my need?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what from each according to their ability, to each according to their need means.
What does my need look like? How do you judge my need?
It's obviously fuzzy, but like one individual probably doesn't need 500 apples for a week unless they're, I don't know, a producer of apple juice, right? Like, if you're just an individual and you don't do anything else to do with apples, you're probably not going to eat 500 apples in a week. If you did, it'd probably kill you. Honestly, that's a lot of sugar.
Okay. What if I personally want to use those apples for, like, growing apple trees? I think it's a pretty poggers idea. Okay, so I can requisition 500 apples.
If you want to grow apples, then, you know, all land is owned in common. You will need you will need the permission of the community to grow those apple trees. But if the community agrees that we need more apple trees, grow more fucking apple trees.
Wait, if the community agrees that we don't need to grow more apple trees, can I not just grow an apple tree in my backyard?
I mean, you can grow an apple tree in your backyard if you want. That's the difference between, like, personal and private property. Like, this isn't such an out there idea. Like, prior to enclosure, we had the land held in common. People used the land to graze, grow crops, fucking whatever they needed it for, right? And it was held in common, and the people of the community used it in such fashion as they needed to.
So I can grow whatever I want in my backyard?
Sure, yeah, up to a. I'm sure you can think of some hyperbolic
Sure, sure, sure,
examples
for
where it
sure, for
affects
sure, for
other
sure, for
people
sure.
around
Yeah,
you,
I'm
but
not gonna
like
be bad faith with it.
broadly, I mean,
I'm not
personal
gonna grow
property.
like a
You have
fucking.
the house in which you live in, right? That's
Sure,
something that you need to survive, and that house might have some small
sure,
area of land around it for a
sure.
garden. You
Okay.
can grow whatever the fuck you want there. Sure.
What if I want a 9-story house?
Well, if you want a 9-story house, I
Yeah.
mean, you're going to have to somehow get the resources to build that, right?
How do I
And
accumulate the
again, that would
resources?
require
If
some kind of.
Well, if I accumulate the resources by just asking people for it, why couldn't I just walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, I want a 9-story house. Give me all the wood to make it. Give me all the bricks to make it," and then just get it?
I
Because
mean,
I don't need money. I just ask
because
for it.
those resources are held in common. Like, there's no like, why do you need a 9-story house? Like, it.
Why
The
not?
community could feasibly decide that, yeah, sure, Ahrelevant can have a 9-story house, and then that's fine. I don't understand what the problem is there.
Okay, so what I'm asking is, or sorry, where I'm going with this is, if I can get a 9-story house personally, and let's say there isn't enough, obviously there isn't enough resources that we're going to be able to build everybody a 9-story house.
Yeah.
How is that fair to the other people that don't get a 9-story house?
Because they all partook in the decision making that allowed you to have that 9-story house. They decided how the resources would be allocated. They decided to let you, for whatever reason. I think it's kind of unrealistic. I don't think any community would decide that, but if they did, like, I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
Okay, so what about the like? Then we'll because to a degree I could somewhat agree with this, but then I think it gets a bit sticky when we talk about like luxury goods. There's 10 iPhones, right?
Yeah, luxury goods are where it gets kind of tough. Like,
Okay,
the
so
necessary goods, like, obviously we should try and provide for everybody. Luxury goods, like I said, should be decided democratically by the community. It depends on what resources are available to you, and generally how you want to distribute them. I don't actually have a problem. Like, if you only have 10 iPhones and 100 people want iPhones, right?
yep.
Then, like, probably in your community, you're going to be voting to devote more resources to creating more iPhones in order to meet that desire, right? As long as, as long as that desire outweighs other desires that you might have that require those resources.
Okay, so that's what I'm wondering. Why do I not get a benefit from being somebody that lives with very minimal resources? So, like, in our current society, how
you definitely
money
get benefit.
hold on, how money is ought to work is supposed to be that, like, or at least all fair, whatever, right? Is that you buy takeout every day or whatever. I don't buy takeout every day, so I can afford an iPhone, right? That's what it's supposed to be like, right? If I can just walk up to people and ask them for whatever the fuck I want, and it's by my need, right? So I just ask them for a bunch of fucking shit that I happen to.
Well, I mean, it's fundamentally decided by the society that you're in, the democratic system that you're in.
And so,
But I don't think we're going to hold a vote every time somebody goes and says, "Hey, I'd like an apple because I want to make apple pie for dinner." Right? That's fucking stupid and unrealistic. If somebody turns up and says, "I want 500 apples," then you might have to ask a few more questions and maybe put it to some kind of democratic decision.
okay, how
depending
often?
on
Yeah, how many apples does my family of 3 get per week?
I whatever's like a relatively reasonable amount. Like,
Okay,
I
sure. So
I,
I think then the issue comes in, like, okay, me as a person, right? I chose to not have kids, right? I'm not expunging like more resources. Should I not get a reward in some fashion? In today's society,
for not using more resources.
Yeah, for not using more resources.
Yeah, so we're talking profit incentive here. Right?
Yeah, like, I am choosing to live a modest lifestyle. Should I not get a reward for that?
No, that's your choice. You can live as moderate or
so then
extravagant a lifestyle as the community will allow, I guess.
So yeah, now you're incentivizing me to just ask for everything whenever it's available. You're creating unlimited demand is what you're now creating, because there is no cost benefit analysis. If something comes out, a luxury good,
you're not asking for things. You see, all those things that you want, right? If if you want to have a particular item, then you have to use the resources which you and other people own in common in order to create that item. So you're not really taking from, you're not taking anything that you don't already kind of own anyway, right?
Well, no,
Like-
because the problem is we can't all get everything and have it, sing kumbaya. We can't get everything.
No, you
So-
can't, and that's why it has to be.
What is my
democratically
incentive?
decided.
Right. So what is my incentive for not asking for the biggest house always, the biggest apple always, everything be the most extravagant always?
You can
What's
ask
my
for
incentive?
it, you just might not get it. The community decides, right? Maybe they
So-
think Relly's like the most big-brained, amazing, gorgeous, handsome guy ever, and they're like, we should really. I mean, this would be kind of antithetical to an anarchist society as well, but like, we should give Relly all the good shit because we just love Relly so much. He's just such a kind, intelligent, and personable chap, and like, I don't necessarily have a huge amount of issue with that. The issue comes with like the power relations when you can start telling people what to do and so on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, more or less that's what's happening, no? Because you could just say we democratically decide on who gets, like, iPhones or what have you. I could talk about, like, what if it's even? What if it's disproportionate? Like, what if people tend to like to give luxury goods towards a certain group of people more than another group of people, democratically? Like, what do you do then?
So this is where decentralization comes into play, right? This is why we talk about like communities rather than like centralized states. It is a function of democracy, and one of the great failings of it, in fact, that one can be ruled by the tyranny of the majority. There's only a minority of like a few people in a country are likely never going to have their views heard.
Yep.
Now, in a more decentralized system, you would live. When I say communities, it's kind of it's not the concept of a particular area of land with borders. I'm talking about democratic systems. Democratic systems in society can interlock and overlap, right? So you may have your group. I don't know, maybe you play cricket every afternoon because you're a terrible brick bonger, right? And you have your group of people that you play cricket with, and you make decisions about cricket with those people, right? But like some of those people, and or whatever, like you need food for your cricket tea, okay? So you're then going to have to make democratic decisions that involve other people, the food producers, the people who distribute it, blah, 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 blah. We live in a complex, interlocking and overlapping system of many different, like, communities, basically, right? Now, the advantage of decentralization when it comes to the tyranny of the majority is that in a smaller democracy, your vote is worth more, right? Rather than just having the entire nation decide what happens on a blanket level with absolutely everything, you have smaller democracies deciding what happens in these smaller systems, correct? So, if there's only 3 people, you have 33% of the vote, right? And if there's 4 people, you only have 25% of the vote.
Can I get in now? The problem with smaller communities is those smaller communities then have to interact with other small communities that are outside of it.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say my community, right? So let's say my community of 10 people want apples, but there's nobody that provides apples in our community. I then have to argue with a separate community of people that might not prioritize my community of people as much as another community of people. What do I do about that lack of fairness?
Well, it's highly likely that you're all going to be part of a much larger community, right? Like the producers of apples and the buyers of apples and the people who eat apples and blah, blah, blah. You're all part of one community that is involved in the economy of apples. And so you all have to make those decisions together. And if you need something that your community doesn't have, that another community does, then it requires cooperation and negotiation. And you can come together and make some kind of democratic decision between yourselves as to how you want to engage with other communities. This is how nations work today, for example.
Okay? take me for example. I'm a NEET. I like sitting inside all day. This is what I meant way earlier when we were talking about it. I'm a NEET. I stay inside all day. I don't like fucking talking to people. Do you think it's very realistic that I'm ever going to be prioritized for getting an iPhone in comparison to the people that are really likable in my community and constantly interact with their community because they're extroverts? Do you think that, like, it's very likely that I'm ever going to get any kind of special treatment, or because I'm somebody who's a shut-in all day, I'm never going to be prioritized in my community democratically? Because more or less, when we're talking about these democracies, it's a popularity contest. And I'm not a very popular guy because I fucking hate other people. Like, do you think
are providing things, right? Like, right now, under capitalism, you have a very similar problem, right?
I have money. I doesn't matter what people's opinion are. They have to serve me.
Okay, but how do you acquire that money?
By providing a service.
Right, exactly. And in this same society, you would still be providing some service, right?
Yeah, like, but people don't officially have to recognize it, because when the iPhones come, I can pay money for iPhones because I live a very modest lifestyle. I can buy an iPhone. However, in this society that we're talking about here, I have to requisition an iPhone from a democratic body or a group of people that I don't fucking like. I don't talk to my neighbors. I don't like my neighbors. I want to live my life. I never want to talk to them. And the consequences of me being a shut-in in this society would be that I'm never prioritized for any luxury good treatment ever. But in this society, I get to choose, because I provide a service to society, and then I'm compensated for that service. I'm not compensated inside of your society. I'm compensated for being popular in your society.
Yeah, so you're thinking in terms of, like, every democracy being like a direct democracy, right? That, like, because your neighbor doesn't know you, they're not going to vote for you to have an iPhone. And, I agree on an individual level, that's what would happen, right? But when we start talking about society at large, we don't just say we don't care about the people that we never see, right? We clearly recognize, like, on a slightly larger scale, that there are people who are disadvantaged in many ways, and we want them to be taken care of.
But you just said that the iPhones are given out democratically. You just said the iPhones are given out democratically, right?
But, like, the method of so the method of democracy that chooses how the iPhones are distributed, it could easily be that you're like, well, we have a whole bunch of people in our society who, aren't present or whatever in particular areas, and we want to make sure they're taken care of too. So maybe we do some kind of, like, lottery system. Maybe you can apply for an iPhone, and we do a lottery system for all the people who've applied and just give them out randomly or whatever. Like, there's so many different ways in which this could work, and it's not really that fundamentally different from how things are supposed to work today. We have
so that's not true. That's not true at all, right? Because when we're talking about the acquisition of especially things like luxury goods, I am supposed to be, and to a degree I am, rewarded for not just spending frivolously, right? I personally live a very modest lifestyle. Okay, I don't spend much money, right? And I am rewarded for that because I save money, and that money that is saved, I can then use on whatever the fuck I want, right? That's the reality. However, in your society, I'm not rewarded for saving at all. In fact, I am de-incentivized in saving at all. I should consume as much resources as possible because I am not. There is no positive gain at all for me being modest, for living a modest life whatsoever. I should always ask for the biggest house and the biggest everything because I'm not rewarded for modesty in the way that I live my life in any way, shape, or form. Sure. So everyone's going to be asking for the largest garage, the largest house, the largest TV, always. And anybody who gets a smaller TV is going to feel shafted, as they should.
Yeah, I mean, we can't. It's unlikely that we'll ever get to a point where people can just, like, have absolutely everything that they want. Like, resources probably are limited to a certain degree. But
what I'm asking for is a system that doesn't fuck over unpopular people, like, as much as possible.
What, you mean like capitalism?
Do you really think that everybody who wins in capitalism is popular? You want to tell me the public's opinion of, like, Jeff Bezos? You want to tell me what your opinion of Jeff Bezos is?
You're like, a system that doesn't fuck over unpopular people. Capitalism fucks over unpopular people.
Not always,
Jeff Bezos is extremely popular. Well, what are you talking about?
Not
A lot of people
really.
fucking
No,
hate
not
you,
wait,
but,
not
like,
real. Wait, not really. Are you joking? There's
what
a
do you
lot of
mean,
there's
am
a
I
lot of people that think that Jeff Bezos should pay billions of dollars more because he's hiding. You got MSNBC literally doing targeted fucking agit propaganda against Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, of course. A lot of people fucking hate him too.
So wait,
Very
which
famous.
one is it? Does everybody love him or does everybody hate him?
I said that I said that a lot of people really like him, right? Which is also true. Like, attention is a
Okay,
pretty big
so
currency
maybe let's
in
rephrase
capitalism.
this. Do you think Jeff Bezos made his money because of his popularity?
How did Jeff Bezos make his first load of money? I mean, probably not.
Okay.
But this is still different from like this, as a broad generality. Like, this system does make it harder if you're unpopular.
Yeah,
if you're
but it doesn't
popular,
make it. But it's not
gonna be easier for
fundamental
you,
to it. I can be an unpopular person and still make it. However, in your system, I can't because it's all
Yes, you
built
can.
on. No, it's all built on the position that people have on you, the democratic will of that
No,
people,
not
that
you
group of people.
specifically.
Yeah, it is.
We no,
If
we
yes,
make
it
deci-
is.
No, we make okay. Look, democracy even now doesn't fucking work based on like, oh well, I don't like specifically Irrelevant, so he's never gonna get a mobile phone.
You're right,
Like,
because
that's
we don't do
fucking
community
stupid.
voting.
And
You're right, and I like
and-
it that way because my community isn't voting on who gets to have the fucking iPhones. You're right, but when if my community
again,
was hold on,
communities aren't-
if my communities were voting on who gets the iPhones, then yeah, absolutely they would fuck me over because I don't like talking to my neighbors. I don't like interacting with my neighbors. But in a society where I am interacting with my neighbors and I have to maintain a
Irrelevant,
relationship,
irrelevant.
absolutely they would.
What do you think I mean when I say community? I explained it. I said I was talking about democratic systems, right? Like, we this most people who make a democratic decision don't know 99.999 recurring percent of the people that it's going to affect. It literally can't.
No, okay, so you're trying
So
it right
there's
now.
not gonna be a
You
vote
said
of,
specifically
like, oh, we hate
community
Irrelevant.
voting. You said within your
Yes.
community, and you even made arguments to like as small as 3 people. Okay, so you're talking about
Oh
voting.
God, no!
So
I was
you're
explaining decentralization. You're
Yeah,
complaining
no.
everything
So
now.
no, you're
So
trying it
who
right.
is the
Stop.
community
Dial
that
it. Stop.
decides?
Dial it back. Okay. Are you talking about voting amongst 100,000 people? Is the smallest group? Or are you talking about voting
it
between
could be.
neighborhoods? No, I'm not. Hold on, Vivian. I'm not talking what it could be. I'm talking about what you're prescribing. Are you prescribing that we have community
outlined
voting?
This. Holy fuck!
No,
I
you didn't.
said-
And so you're doubling back on it if you are, because
I'm
you
not-
earlier were
I'm
talking about
not.
communities
I
as far as
defined this.
neighborhoods.
I already talked about this.
You're
I
talking
already
about
talked
neighborhoods
this.
earlier.
No, what I said, right, was and I defined this. I said, when I talk about communities, right, I'm talking about democratic systems. And there's we said about the apples, right? The democratic system of people who need apples, right? And people who produce apples, right? And people who are involved in decisions about the land that is used to like grow those apples and blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Do you think that this is
these
going to be
like a lot of interlocking, overlapping systems?
Do you think that this community is going to be 100,000 people big or like neighborhoods big?
I don't think that we produce iPhones on the scale of like making 10 a year. I think that's
it would be given
absurd.
to 10 per community. That was the reason why we were talking about it. 10 per neighborhood. 10 per neighborhood. This is why I said.
Okay,
wait, hold on, Vivian.
Vivian.
If your point was that my argument for communities was too small, why didn't you object to the million different times I said a community of 50, a community of 100? This is what we're talking about. It's like neighborhoods of people.
We were talking about hypotheticals in order to illustrate
you're
how things
hypothetical.
could work.
You're the world you want to live in is what we're talking about.
Okay. So realistically, right, we don't produce iPhones on a scale of like 10 per year. This is why I thought we were talking about some kind of fucking we were just trying to illustrate stuff with weird math, right? Like when you say like, oh, if an apple costs $1, how many apples can I get for 100?
Sure, I understand what you're saying. Are we then how? What is? What is the
Yeah,
rate
when
of
I say-
rationing on iPhones then? Are we going to do like a 50 million person raffle? A 50,000 person raffle? What level of community distribution am I going to use iPhones on?
I mean,
How
it's pretty
local
easy
does
to
it
do
get?
something like that with modern computing, right? You can put in your application. We can decide who gets them through lottery if needs be, if that's the way we decide our iPhones are distributed, right? Like in the case of like electronics manufacture and distribution, you're talking such a huge community of people that are involved in that decision making,
So
right? On
just to
many
be
different
fair,
interlocking and overlapping levels.
just to be straight, what you're saying is that we're going to do a nationwide raffle every time iPhones are made.
I'm saying that is one way in which you could decide.
I'm
who
not
gets
asking
them.
a one way. I'm asking you for your system. Stop saying one way. This is how
That
we
is
could
not-
do
that-
it. I'm asking you for how you would
and
want to do
that's
it.
why this is fucking stupid, because that is one way that would be morally acceptable to me. Yes, And I already said there are other ways that would be morally acceptable as well, right? Like, and all of them I think are like relatively equally morally acceptable.
So am I just like given like a number and like my SSN or something, and then they call it when the nationwide raffle
Do you
goes?
see what I mean about like what's your perfect society? How would you
This
get
isn't
this
a.
thing
These
to
are
work?
simple.
Let's
These are
dig it down to the very specific.
This isn't very okay.
I know, really.
Vivian,
As long
I am
as-
asking you how humans get iPhones in your society. We're not talking about your fucking the goddamn system for a 1095 tax form, okay? I am literally talking how you get a luxury good at all in your society. And you're trying to say that I'm making this appeal to some kind of weird
Everybody involved.
I don't know why the hell
everybody
you're trying this.
Okay, everybody involved, right, in the management of resources used to produce, the production of, the distribution of, and broader society that is affected by those decisions decides democratically how that is distributed, right? One system could be that those who need put in an application,
Which
and then if
system?
there aren't enough, you have a lottery.
Which system do you think is the best?
What do I think should be voted for? I think we should try and make sure that we have enough that everybody who needs one gets one. So we vote to
Jesus.
ramp up production or whatever.
That's not what I'm
Right?
asking. And you know, which system do you advocate for? A lottery system? A system where in which the community decides? Let's say that I've gotten out of a lottery system like 10 of the luxury goods in a row. Can the community go, no, you know what? You've gotten like 10 of them in a row. You're a really lucky dude. We're going to give it to somebody else. Or is it like, fuck it, we're just going to keep rolling those numbers? Where is it?
I mean, if you've
like,
made
where's the
that
line?
if you've made that decision, you can say, hey, there's like a limit on the number of lotteries that you can win or whatever. Like, there's so many different ways in which you can decide this stuff.
Do you think
This is
that
what
it's
I
not
mean
just
about this conversation?
No,
It's
do you-
nonsense. I wish
No,
we could
it's
talk
not.
about the
It's- do you think
philosophy of
it's
anarchism instead of like the practical?
No,
far
this
flung
is the
futuristic
philosophy of
society.
anarchism leads to certain outcomes like this brain rot. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that the philosophy of
I don't know,
anarchism
you've got
leads to
brain rot,
literal
dude.
brain rot. That's the point.
Okay, wait, really? How the fuck do you get an iPhone under capitalism right
I
now?
buy one.
Okay, do you think that's fair?
Yep.
Okay, I think that's fucked, actually. I think that's super fucked because a whole load of people don't have access to the same education, jobs, resources that you
And
do.
I would
right?
I actively advocate that they have access to those things.
Okay, you can advocate that they have access to those things.
And in my
But,
society, and because I
or in
actually
your
deal with
society,
hypotheticals,
everybody
I
would
will.
have-
Yeah,
everybody would have access to those.
everybody would
things.
have access to the educational standards
so why
and
wouldn't
things like that.
Why wouldn't everybody just have an iPhone then?
It'd probably be similar to what we see with the PS5, which is it goes out of stock every 2 fucking minutes because they just can't
So
churn
how
them
do we
out fast
decide
enough.
who gets one, really?
Whoever can buy them. If you can stay up late enough to get those
Whoever can get
restocks,
one
then you can get it.
first.
Yeah.
Okay,
you can
so
buy
maybe
it.
iPhones are first come, first serve in this in a more democratic society. Really.
When iPhones are here's
and
the issue
now
though,
we're morally
Vivian.
consistent
No,
with each other.
it isn't
no
Vivian,
problem with
because
that.
yours is a fire sale. Whenever I want any luxury
This
good,
is a fire
stop.
sale.
No. Vivian, whenever I want a luxury good, I should always, even if I don't want it, I should get it because there is no downside to getting it. In a capitalist system, there is. I have to pay money and I am incurring a cost that I could use to, let's say, buy a motorcycle or what have you. Instead of buying my PS5, I could have bought a motorcycle. But in your system, I can get everything I want.
No, my system is not. You can get anything you want whenever you want, right? My system is we democratically decide how to distribute these things. Maybe it's the decision of the community that we use some kind of labor voucher system or some kind of other kind of credit system wherein somebody provides something to the community and accrues a certain amount of like points or fucking whatever you want to call it for spending on luxury goods.
At that
right?
point, Vivian, you're trying to. Vivian, at that point, when we're talking about the point system and shit, you're just trying to recreate money. Just have money. I don't know. Understand your issue.
I already said at the very beginning of this conversation, really, that like that like money might not exist in the way that you conceive of it now. It could exist in some other fashion.
I asked you what your system would be.
Which you can't hoard,
no, Vivian, we got onto this because I asked you what system you would want, and you talked about a democratic system without money. You said ideally it'd be without money. That's the whole reason we got on this.
You asked me how I would vote if we were like, let's have a vote.
Your system
in this society on whether or not we should have money. I said we probably shouldn't have money.
Yeah,
and I think the accumulation of money is bad. The difference between that
and then you're just recreating money, though. You're like trying to You're trying to say, well, we can ration things, but we have a certain number of points for rationing things, and these points can be used to ration luxury goods. You're describing money.
Money can be used for a lot of other things. Money can be inherited. Money can be passed from person to person.
Wait, hold on. So if I have a house, right? And I have a kid.
Really, I'm not even.
And I die, right? Does my kid get evicted from that house?
If you have a house and you die, does your kid get evicted from that house?
Does that kid get evicted from the house?
Does the kid already have a house?
It's my house, my kid.
Okay, but does the kid already have? Do they have their own house?
I'm assuming we wouldn't give children houses, so no.
Okay, then no. The child will probably need somebody to care for them. I would rather they not get evicted from their childhood home.
Is that not inheritance?
Sure.
Cool. So inheritance isn't, so you wouldn't get rid of inheritance. You just don't like the way inheritance currently works.
You would not be able to accrue and accumulate more things. So if your kid goes on and gets their own house, they don't need to fucking inherit your house, right? The only prescription is that everybody ought have a house, right? Not that you can continue accruing houses throughout your life and then give 20 of them to your child, who then gives another 20 and gives 40 to theirs.
Okay, what about iPhones, though? Are you just going to repo all of it? So are you going to keep a list of all of the luxury goods? Hold on.
In my brain. This is insane.
Vivian, keep up with me. Don't read the chat. Keep up with me. If I order a bunch of luxury goods, let's say iPhones, all right, and then I die, do you repo all of my luxury goods, or can I give them to my kid?
Luxury goods are, like I said, common property and determined by the community how they're distributed.
So if I die, then my community takes all of my luxury goods?
Yes.
That's wild. Okay. So it is literally their property. It's not my property. They can take all of my shit as soon as I die.
I'm sorry, how do you have personal property when you're fucking dead?
Well, literally, it could go to my family. It could acquire to my family. Why not?
Then it's not yours. It's still not yours if it goes to your family, really.
Wait, can you hold on. Can you give people things in this society, Vivian? Can I give people things at all? Like, let's say I win the raffle for an iPhone. Can I give it to somebody else?
Sure.
So can I give my son... hold on, Vivian. Can I give my son a second iPhone?
You give your son a second iPhone?
A second iPhone.
Sure.
Okay. Now what happens if I die? Do you take the iPhone that I gave him?
No, sure. You can have 2 fucking iPhones. Whatever.
You described inheritance. I can't. As long it works as long as you do it before you die. I can't with this. I'm sorry.
These are luxury
Adios,
goods
mio.
and not necessities.
God bless. I'm sorry. Any final words? Final words, please. I'm done. I'm sorry. I love you.
Whatever.
I'm done. I'm done.
This
Final
just
words.
demonstrates the
Final
fucking
words, please.
inanity of
Final
your
words.
ideal society, blah, blah, blah.
Final
How
words,
does
please.
this specifically work? I've never been interested in fucking saying that. I've
Are
said
those
it
your final words?
repeatedly throughout this conversation on a million different fucking other panels, that there are so many systems that can work within this moral framework. And what is important is the philosophy of how we make these decisions and what our moral framework is, right?
Are those your final words?
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever.
You have a great one. This is why you have to engage. So I want to talk about a separate, like, kind of a lesson to learn here. This is why you have to engage with the outcomes of your ideas, okay? So it's not just like I'm trying to just say this just to fucking say this or anything, right? You have to engage with how the way that your ideas manifest. You have to engage with that. Don't get stuck in an idea where you're like, well, this philosophy, this saying sounds good, so I'm going to hold that as a philosophy. You need to think about, where does that philosophy lead you? What are the outcomes of it? How does it manifest? And defend that position. You need to be able to do that. Otherwise, you end up just reinventing the wheel in a much more scuffed way.